The Honourable Member for Charlottetown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the member across for his comments. They were certainly well researched, they were thoughtful, and they were very reflective on this issue. But I have one curiosity which I would ask the member to address, and that is, given the importance of this bill, the previous member stated in his opinion that it was the most important bill to come before this House in 10 years. And as such, it would deserve the discussion of this House, discussion in committee, and probably consultation in the general public. But I don't think we've heard from this bill since at least April. It's the government House leader that decides what are the legislative priorities of the government. And here we are 125 minutes before adjourning for the Christmas break, and we're having this bill. So my question to the member across, and again I want to thank him for his very thoughtful comments, but any reason why this bill did not receive any priority from the government?
The Honourable Member for Edmonton St. Albert.
Well, as the Honourable Member can appreciate, the decisions of what bills get debated and in what order are made at a pay grade significantly above mine. And that being said, I haven't been here for 10 years, so I can't even comment on the Honourable Member from who preceded me whether or not this is the most important bill in the last 10 years. I've only been here for a little more than 2 years. So I'll say this much, Madam Speaker, this is an important bill. My constituents, the constituents of Edmonton St. Albert, and there was a reference made to a Globe and Mail article that appeared a little over a week ago. And when that article appeared, my phone rang and my email box was filled with constituents from Edmonton, from St. Albert, other places of Alberta, who encouraged me in the strongest of possible terms not to abandon C-12. And as the Minister has said, there was no plan to abandon C-12, but nonetheless the rumors are out there. And to pass it as expeditiously as possible. That's why I'm standing today. That's why I'm encouraging all members to proceed expeditioally with this bill, vote down the block amendment, and get this bill to committee ASAP. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable the Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Well, Madam Speaker, there are a number of pressures today which erode confidence in democratic systems generally, and certainly in Canada, though we have a great democratic system, there are those pressures. One of the founding fathers of the democratic movement 250 years ago said that his greatest concern was that democracy would one day collapse under the weight of its constituents' demands. So that's certainly something we have to keep in mind. But one of the greatest demands of constituents is a sense of equality in their voting power and in their voting privilege. And of course, no government and no Prime Minister has done more to recognize Quebec as a people and a nation than this government and as this Prime Minister has. But the fact remains that as parts of the country continue to grow in population, significantly British Columbia being one of those, the weight of those voters in BC has been diminished. And there are other constitutional items, as the member from Edmonton St. Albert has already outlined, that reach out and try to address some of these issues in provinces that are losing population. But I wonder if the member could tell me in calls, certainly, that he's having, if he's had an opportunity to reflect, are there some means that we should be using to communicate to Canadians in parts of the country where their population is diminishing, that in fact what they are witnessing is the ongoing evolution of demographic shifts here, not a diminishing of anybody's constitutional right to vote? Should there be some measures that we are taking to reach out and to pointing out the other constitutional provisions in areas of the country where the vote by numbers is diminishing somewhat?
The Honourable Member for Edmonton St. Albert has just a little less than a minute to respond. Thank
you, Madam Speaker, and I'd certainly like to thank the President of the Treasury Board for his comments and for also for his question. And he's quite right. Certainly, populations and demographics distribute over time, and there are ebbs and flows with provinces. I grew up in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan has seen relative declines in its population over periods of history, and then it has been relatively stable for about the last half century, and now we're seeing some population increases as a result of the significant economic growth in that province. But certainly, with respect to modern communication and the ability to phone and email members of Parliament from any part of the country, I think all members of this country can be represented, certainly by their own member, but also by other members of this House of Commons. So I believe that this bill is fair, it's a reasoned approach, and it ought to be passed unamended. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Reprise du débat, l'honorable député de Winnipeg Nord.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I believe that the government is actually sending mixed